All right, we're live.
Hey, what's up? It's another episode of Flex for Life with my co-host Greg. I want to start off by congratulating Urs, man. An amazing appearance at the Italian Pro. Urs jumped up from the Classic Physique, and I can see why. It's really interesting because imagine what this guy had to diet down to, and it's called bodybuilding. So, congratulations to him. Congratulations to Quentin. I know you've been trying really hard to score a pro victory, man. You're almost there. And then Martin and
Mark.
Sergio come in fourth. Mark and Sergio. I know there's going to be a rematch this weekend at Dennis James' show. So let's see what happened at that show. Also, breaking news is Keon Pierce is going to be entering a pro show right after the Olympia. Not too surprised with that either. Seeing what Keon looks like in the gym and his condition and size right now, it's just a matter of time before he moves over into that. Even though I am surprised that he's moving into an open class this soon, because I know before he wanted to create a dynasty in a 212 division. But again, it's called bodybuilding, and literally, if you see this guy walking around in the gym and the conditioning he's in, he actually just sent me a sneak peek of what he looked like. I think it was yesterday, and I just shook my head. And he's like, "You know what's going to happen, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and three time. So it's really interesting. It's really great to see these guys move up and go into the open class instead of dieting down so small, which is definitely dangerous. But again, kudos to Urs, man. You looked incredible. Thing about it is a lot of us are saying because the way Urs poses, which he brings back that classical posing, he really puts a lot into it. That's going to put a lot of pressure on the guys who don't really pose that well. It's going to be really obvious. It's going to be interesting to see what happens at the Olympia. Unfortunately, I'm going to miss it because I have a tour to do with my company, Flex Wheeler Nutrition. I'll be in Greece and in Bulgaria, but I will be watching on screen. I will be watching live. So now we're going to switch to.
Well, let's stay here because I remember we wanted to talk about his
Okay.
posing, but I mean, he jumped up a full 2 categories, right? Classic all the way to open.
Yeah.
And he beat some pretty big names on there. Here's like the front for the most muscular.
Yeah. I mean, again, Quentin has been pounding. He's a big man. His thing is they've been saying he needed to be in better condition, and he actually went to go and train with the Mr. Olympia over there in England, and it really made a difference. He was dry as hell. Actually, I thought it was going to be an incredible match. I had Quentin edging him out, but it was a pose situation based on different poses. And then Mark, as you can see, just a ton of muscle on the guy from top to bottom, great legs, great everything. And Sergio, a well-known big name for, yeah, so Urs to jump up 2 classes and in shape. I mean, from the rear, his glutes were just striated to live in hell. So that's absolutely amazing that he can do that, jumping up 2 classes and being in that type of condition. It's going to be very interesting to see what type of physique he can bring into the Olympia.
Okay, yeah, look at those glutes there. His whole
Yeah.
rear pose.
Yeah, and the one thing about Quentin, he's just as striated, and his I think his hamstrings are even more detailed. But one thing has always been about the really darker competitors, the light just doesn't show their condition as well. You really have to look deeper. That's always been a problem with like Robbie and some of the other guys. They'll be in just as condition, but you have to have that balance of color on stage. So as dark as Quentin is, it kind of takes away from that. But if you look really closely, you can see Quentin's glutes are just as striated. His hamstrings are striated, separated, and even from the side, just how dry his legs are from the side. But man, Quentin, I wish you luck. And Dennis James show over there in Germany. I wish you guys all the best. And no matter what, I don't care who it is. I just hope that the best person wins on stage. That's what bodybuilding is all about.
So, what do you think about this thought. I mean, I'm obviously a Classic Physique guy, and I think we pride ourselves in our posing ability, even though we don't do as many mandatories.
Right.
But I mean, Urs was a great poser in Classic, I thought.
Yeah, he was amazing. I think the first show that I seen him compete in, I'm trying to think of where it was, but it was the first time that
Probably
pro
the
show
Boston
had.
Pro when we're there, right?
Yeah, Boston Pro. Yeah, Boston Pro. That was the first time I ever seen him, and I was just astonished with his posing. And we met afterwards, and he was like, "Man, I'm a big fan. You know, I've always wanted to meet you. I love to work with you." And I was just dumbfounded, like, "Dude, man, your posing is insane." From there to now, just the size and development that he put on. I mean, balance too. And again, to be that striated, his
Yeah.
quads and his glutes and everything. Wow, this guy has definitely has some talent
I'm
and
wondering
has
with
an
that, and then
amazing
with
future.
Bumstead coming in second last year, just out of the blue in the open, and Keon was a Classic guy for a while, also, right? And
Yeah, he was classic and then moved up to 212, and just the evolution of bodybuilding is going to put him eventually into
right,
the open class. But Bumstead also coming back and competing in the open. I've always said this guy needs to be an open competitor with his height and condition. And he said, you know, he never was. Then he retired. Well, he did a pro show, open, retired,
right.
you know, but when he said he retired, he was actually retiring from Classic Physique. You know, little did we know he was going into the open class. But again, him and his posing, it's we got some guys now who bring back the art of posing, which is beautiful because unless you're just going there to support an individual, just a regular person watching a bodybuilding show, they don't understand it. They don't know it all, but they are attracted to the artistical posing. So it's great to see some of these guys bringing back the artistic posing. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and will that possibly maybe, I don't know what, quote unquote, even the playing field or put them above if they are able to present better? Because I mean, there are some guys that have huge amounts of muscle, but their posing is very robotic and not very artistic, I guess the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think so. You know, even though they don't quote unquote reward posing, but obvious if you can present your body in a better light, and it's a close show, I think it will edge out and help you to win more. So I know a lot of the guys are actually putting more artistic and a lot of work into their posing, especially our current Mr. Olympia. He guest posed at the show, and he was demonstrating that he had elevated his posing with a lot of classic poses and put a lot of time into his posing and stuff like that. So it's great. For me, I just think it's a part of bodybuilding. It's a part of being a professional, being able to present yourself a certain way, to carry yourself a certain way on and off stage, to have the condition, to have the muscularity. I think it will definitely put pressure on the guys who can't pose that well.
There you go. So it should be fun to check in on it this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. You guys check out Dennis James show this weekend. I know he had opened up more tickets. I think it was like 1,000 or something more tickets, and he's completely sold out. It's an amazing arena that he has there in Germany, and he just made an announcement. There's so many people who wants to do the show that now he's actually going to live stream it. So you guys go to his this Instagram page and get more information about that. It'd be interesting to see these three guys going head to head again and seeing what happens. So, but let's jump into a kind of an old topic that has new meaning and new insight, and that's creatine and beta-alanine. Obviously, beta-alanine is something really big that's used in pre-workouts. I know, like my pre-workout, it's we have it in there, and it has always made me like when I feel that tingling getting on. I'm just like, man, let's go. You know, either it's time to drive to the gym or when I'm getting to the gym. And a lot of people don't like it, but I love it. I love the feeling. I mean, my face gets flustered and I'll be going like this and grabbing my ears, but
Oh, I
I
like the
abs-
nuclear face feel.
yeah, I absolutely love it. And creatine has just been known since forever, but Greg, tell us a little bit about the new studies that you found out about between the two.
Yeah, what we found is I was able to pull up about 20 studies on this one. Beta-alanine actually outperformed creatine in specific activities. So creatine is great for the weightlifting part, right? So it extends your ability to contract your muscles at a higher rate for a little bit longer. But that's specifically for it supports the ATP PCR phosphocreatine system. So that's stuff that doesn't require oxygen or lack of oxygen. So the weightlifting stuff up to 1 minute of time typically. Anything
Okay.
past that, it's pretty much depleted at that point and you need a break. So if you're lifting weights,
So it's like per set, and then it burns out. You take a break, and it's ready to go
and
and
then
do
it
it again.
recovers. That's what creatine helps with there. But
Right.
anything past that, it's like, it's like your nitrous, if you're putting a nitrous oxide in your car and you do a burst of it, it gets you for that couple seconds. But then if your race is actually for another mile after that, you're kind of screwed at that point, right?
Okay.
So
So
what
for long distance sports like running, MMA, basketball, stuff like that, that's long distance, football, stuff
swimming,
like that.
yeah, rowing, or even CrossFit type events where their
Right.
events could last for 2 to 3 minutes when it's still weightlifting, that wouldn't help there. So what they have found is that beta-alanine bridges that gap. Now, they said their best case scenario is do both, right? Build up a
Right.
good metabolic level of creatine and build up a good metabolic level of beta-alanine, and you got the best of both worlds. But what beta-alanine does is it supports carnosine production. And what carnosine does is it buffers the hydrogen ions that come along with metabolic work. So that burning sensation you feel, it's not necessarily,
Acid buildup, what
yeah,
we
it's not
call
that
it. Yeah.
lactic acid like they keep telling you. It's actually the hydrogen ion buildup. And what carnosine does is it buffers that, so it allows you to fight passive fatigue levels and go harder longer. And
Hmm.
that's what beta-alanine has done. And that's actually one of the studies that kind of broke it down for specifically exercise and training. It broke down that mechanical process of what it does. Now, big difference here. You brought up your pre-workout that has a good amount of beta-alanine and creatine in it, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but this is not a pre-workout type of situation, unfortunately, for this effect. For the
Mm.
muscular endurance effect side of things, I saw studies anywhere from 1.5 grams 3 to 4 times a day to 5 grams a day per serving
So
to
you have to
build up
build
the
up
metabolic.
this.
It's like a loading process.
Oh, okay. Okay. How long is the loading process normally before you can get a full effect?
I saw anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks.
Wow. Wow. I've
Yeah, so
taken
it was
it 3 times a day.
in one case it was 4 times a day for a boxing study. But in
Good
that
grief.
boxing study, they actually found, and actually I'll pull that one up now. They actually found that after a loading period, they were able to increase punch power by up to 20x.
Jeez.
Now these were not, pro level boxers that were throwing 800-pound per square inch punches. These were generalized individuals, but up to 20 times power. That's a
That's
pretty
pretty significant. I
over
mean,
time too. So this is keeping it up for a 3-minute round.
really. Wow.
So that's pretty
Interesting.
substantial if you could do that, right?
Yeah. I know like other sports, bodybuilding's always been about nutrition and how we can get away or improve things. And other sports really wasn't like that, especially like boxing. It was a big no-no to weight train, and all that stuff that it would slow you down. I remember Lee Haney working with Evander Holyfield was the first proof of that. And then you have every sport, MMA and everybody else in the gym doing some type of resistance training. But
I wonder where that all honestly came from because the ancient Greeks were doing that thousands of years ago for all sports.
yeah, no,
Somehow,
I remember. I remember, like even when I fought martial arts, I would work out and like, oh, it's going to take away your flexibility, it's going to take away your speed. But I would always work out, and then go and do martial arts. So it defeats that. It's just like I said before, when you train legs and you can barely move, if you get on a roller, foam roll, and you roll your legs right afterwards, it's all gone and you can walk away normal. So I thought it improved my ability. It definitely improved my punching power and just my my visual appearance of just when you looked at me in my gear, you're like, oh, okay, this is going to be different. But as some of my videos have shown, I was in an incredible kicker and had pretty great hand speed back then. It didn't bother me at all. So, but then again, I did start martial arts first at a very age and didn't start implementing weight training when I was about 14. And I just did them both all the way out through my entire career. So I think it was a 1-2 punch that was pretty significant.
Right? I think there's an extreme amount of overgeneralization in period, right? Because I
Yeah.
mean, I think you still run into people that especially newbies in the gym that think that they pick up a 5-pound dumbbell, they're going to look like Flex Wheeler in 1999.
Yeah. I was training my daughter Nia when she was down here, and we're training at Dragon Lair, and obviously that's a gym just where all the girls are going to be in shape and
Yeah,
have on halter tops and all of that. And we were training, and Nia's like, "Oh, I don't want to do chest. I don't want my chest to look like theirs." And I'm like, Nia, it'd be a lot harder for that to happen. That's not going to happen just a couple of workouts. She goes, well, no, I don't. I want to stay away from that. I just want to do back and legs. I'm like, okay, I get it. But a lot of women think that. And I remember a lot of times, even with supplements, women wouldn't take supplements because they'd be like, oh, I don't want to get too muscular. And in marketing, we literally had to change the color of female supplements to purple
mhm.
and pink so that they would know it's for them. But a lot of them would think that, oh, I don't want to get too big. I don't want to look like her. And I'm like, don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but like, you can never look like her. It's just you don't have it in you to drive and the discipline and the years of sacrifice.
As if it was that easy, huh? You just accidentally get like that.
Trust me, I wish. I mean, even for men, I train men and like, oh, I don't want to get too big. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. Yeah.
I'm going to alleviate your worries now.
Yeah. But both do that, and it's just it's in a true meaning of ignorance. Not that they're stupid. If I call them stupid, that's worse. But a lot of people get twisted up between those two words. You can call somebody ignorant and they want to fight you. Call them stupid and they're okay with it. But it's just pure ignorance of lack of knowledge of the dedication, the sacrifice, the hard work, the commitment, the resilience you have, the focus, and the ability to block out other things that you would normally do. And that's just over and over and over of years of consistency
Yeah.
that starts to happen. So
I think the industry is also a victim of its own success, where it was for the longest time, you go to the magazine section at a bookstore and the fitness magazines, there's a lot of people like yourself that were on the covers of it. And I think they automatically associated that with
sure,
taking a multivitamin and doing a couple push-ups. It was
sure.
that easy, right? That's all you had to do.
Yeah, or you had I guess the insecure or jealous men and women. I would hear it all the time. A woman say, "Oh, just wait till she gets my age. Oh, wait till she has a
Yeah.
couple babies." I'm like, "Okay, you're jealous." Or a guy would be like, "Oh, you take steroids, or I could look like that if I wanted to." And I'm like, "No, actually, you couldn't." But yeah, it's not that bad now because, well, like you said, back then, you only seen us on stage or
Yeah.
on shows, so it was a lot of ignorance of what it took, and they'd only see us in great shape. They never
Yeah.
seen us off season or anything like now. But now, with the media, magazines are gone, but with the media and everything, you pretty much have a higher amount of people in the gym doing bodybuilding type workouts or powerlifting workouts, which is a good or a bad thing because I see so many amateurs, especially women, in the gym and they're trying to like deadlift. And I'm like, Jesus, what are you doing? No core tightness or nothing. And I'm like, wow, they're just going to ruin themselves.
We're not
But
down
with
talking deadlifts. We're saying that they're not having
Oh
good.
no. Oh no. They just listen, that is for a beginner, that's not the first thing that you go to. That's a dynamics that you have to have full control and understanding of how the body works, just like squats. And I remember back in high school, they'd take us and put us under the squat rack, and guys will just like buckle, because it just takes a while to understand the mechanics of that, so but times are different now where you have everybody in a gym working out for some reason, which is a great thing, which is a great thing.
I think the newer generations aren't as afraid of adding some muscle under their bodies. I think they're actually a little
Want
bit
to.
way more acceptant of it.
Yeah, a lot of them even more so want to, even the women that
Yeah,
goes in the gym, they want to tone up and put a little bit more muscle on their bodies instead of like the women that used to be on what's the famous magazine, they
like
would always not shape, but I can't think of the name of it, but it would always be like really skinny
the
women
Jane
on a.
Fonda days.
Yeah, gosh, yeah. Oh, jeez. I don't. I don't want to, like, you know. How can I say that without being disrespectful? But it's like it's a saying that we'd have no ass at all. It's just like, or just they would look like billboards, and that's crazy because you went back further than that, and women were more curvy and
Yeah,
accepted in the movies and stuff like that, and that went away to women kind of looking more anorexic. I remember a lot of the supermodels would talk about afterwards what they had to go through to look that way or to be a runway model, and now it's back to women who want to be in shape and have that athletic look,
well, I know
even if
what
they don't
changed.
compete.
What did my heart some good on this topic? Because obviously, I like a little muscle on my women because I married a pro.
Yeah,
But when Gal Gadot was announced as the new Wonder Woman about 10 years ago now, one of the bigger complaints was she's too skinny, and they were putting a bunch of
yeah,
CrossFit type girls around her as other Amazons, and she kind of stood out as the skinny one.
yeah,
And that was
yeah,
one of the major complaints. And actually, that did my heart some good because I know that my picture of Wonder Woman, because I am a comic book geek, is a very fit woman that's 6 feet tall and looks like a warrior.
yeah. I've said this before, but it's really interesting. In my era, when we walked around humans, because we were unhuman or
Yeah.
inhuman, but we walked around, or let me say, when we walked amongst mere mortals, we weren't accepted. We were looked at and they gasped like, oh my gosh. But at that same time, if you looked at any superhero in any comic book, they were more bigger and shredded than I was, than any of us was. But they would buy those little characters for their kids and let them play with that. And you'd have people who would just all into comic books, but we were the walk-in versions of that, and we weren't accepted. But if you had it in a cartoon character, even now, even more so with digital ability, every
Yeah.
superhero on TV. I remember back when the movie 300 was done,
Yep.
and they later on they showed the workouts and everything they've done, but I think that was the first time that digital alteration came into play because everyone had freaking insane abs and muscularity, and that's the version of us, but it was accepted on an international movie.
Well, remember the He-Man toys back in the 80s?
Oh dude, oh yeah,
I
yeah, I
mean, that was
do.
that was straight out of 1999 Flex Wheeler.
100%, 100%. Jeez, those cartoons were the best. They're amazing. Even some of the names of them. I'm trying to think of I don't know why I can't think of the names of them, but they were
All the G.I.
incredible.
Joe cartoons too. They were all pretty jacked,
Yeah, you're right.
including the
Yeah,
girls.
yeah, you're right. GI Joe always had a back, always had muscular legs.
Yep.
A big bicep. That's really interesting how the human character wasn't accepted, but everyone accepted. The cartoon character.
Well, you know why? Because they all took Beta-Alanine.
That's what it did. I mean, obviously it was a big secret back then, but now we're finding out and catching up.
Right. Well, actually, come to think of that, because I know that with the 300 actors, they put them through. I mean, they called it the 300 workout, but it was really more CrossFit type of stuff. So long,
Yeah.
high weights, long endurance type stuff. And actually, going back to our actual topic after about 10 minutes, Beta-Alanine, they did a study on military personnel. And they
Really.
actually found that their not just their physical performance improved by, I believe in this one, almost 30%, but also their cognitive performance, because beta alanine is also a neurotransmitting enforcer. So they actually
Really?
had better cognition during their drills.
Hmm.
That's where you get that tingling feeling on your face, and you feel like you want to scratch your face off sometimes.
Yeah.
That's where the pre-workout version of beta-alanine, or including it in that, becomes a plus.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
very interesting stuff.
Interesting. That's really interesting. But what I'm thrown off about is the multitude of how much you have to take it and how long before you get that amazing effect from it.
Right. And
And
then it's
I
not like,
wonder, do your reactors kind of get overloaded and you no longer get that tingling feeling anymore?
that's a good question. I didn't read anything past the loading phase and seeing the results of it. And then also I'm wondering, like you said, it's a lot. Like 5 grams could be a lot if you're taking that daily.
Yeah.
So it can get kind of expensive. But with creatine during the loading phases, you could be taking 25 to 30 grams for a week or so. But then after that, most of the studies are 4 to 5 grams a day is more than enough to
Yeah.
maintain the metabolic level. So if you have to constantly take 5 grams a day of beta alanine, first off, your face will never stop tingling for the rest of your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And secondly, if you're getting a decent quality version of it, then you're spending a decent amount of money. But then again, the people that really want this, they'll go through with it.
Oh yeah. And again, you have people who will go to Starbucks every day and spend a certain amount of money on something negative. Don't want to, talk bad about Starbucks, but their food and everything isn't the best, but you have people do that.
Or coffee isn't the best.
Yeah. Oh God, coffee is one of the worst things. Me and my wife, we get into it all the time because she's a coffee drinker and I love Crystal Light. Right. I've been
Uh,
drinking Crystal Light since I've been competing, and she'll be like, "It's not real. It has artificial sugars. You should just drink water." And I'm like, "Sweetheart," I go, "compared to your coffee." And everything that it has in it, all the pesticides and everything else that it has
oh,
in it. I'm like, are you kidding me?
well, I'm
And
talking
she
about for coffee connoisseurs. They all say Starbucks isn't that good to begin with, like
Oh,
taste wise.
really? Oh,
Yeah.
really? Oh,
So they just got a good name recognition. So it's double bad.
yeah, yeah. But I remember creatine when it first hit in my time. It was amazing, just the pumps that we would get. We didn't know how much to take and everything like that because it wasn't regulated. But I think Vince Taylor was one of the first who kind of talked about how he used it, and at his age and the growth that he was having, when I started taking, I could tell a huge difference. And even when I start back training, with my product, I can tell just a massive difference in that. But again, just want to talk a little bit more about just the posing. And the person I was talking about, Mr. Olympia, is Samson. When he went and guest posed, everybody, I know that he had talked about wanting to work on his posing and
Mhm.
his condition, and he was actually close to his conditioning on stage, and I think that was 5 weeks out, but his posing was just so different. It was so elegant. That's one thing that I prided myself on, is being a big guy but can move like a ballerina. That's all.
Mhm.
I always said that I want to, like, be extremely muscular but just have the fluency to be able to pose. And I do think that's going to catch the judge's eye, even if they don't um, judge it. You can't help but acknowledge the person who kind of goes like this and walks back and forth and do double biceps and crab poses versus the person who's artistic. I think if it's close, that's just going to be a huge difference. So kudos to Samson and getting even better in condition, because I know that was one of the things that they were talking about, that he needs to do better. Is have better condition, but the condition that he showed guest posing at that show was pretty freaking impressive with
Well,
his
I'm just thinking also
muscularity.
this past weekend with Quentin and Urs, um, when Urs, let's say, hits his front double by, he does a little bit more of a classic physique double by, I guess, where there's a little
Yeah,
bit more of a flow to it, and
yeah,
he's able to really accentuate his smaller midsection. I think
yeah,
that should factor in, right? Because Quentin just hits, for the most part, the bigger guys, they hit like just a straightforward front
yeah,
and back, or,
yeah,
straightforward X frame type of.
yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm not a judge.
You're
I've
right.
been judged,
It's
but
just we're just voicing our personal opinion. It's neither here nor there. Everybody has an opinion, but it was a huge difference from Quentin going over there training with the Mr. Olympia Sampson and his wife. His
Mhm.
condition, I think his wife probably did Sampson's diet because his condition and size in just 2 weeks was
You noticed?
incredible. Oh gosh, man, it was massive. It was massive. Quentin's always been a big guy. I remember meeting him quite a few years ago, and when I was helping one of the other professionals train, I can't remember his name, but I was helping him pose. And Quentin that walked into the hotel room, and I was like, "Dude, what is this?" Just the size and everything. And he was still an amateur, but you know, hey, greatness takes time. And Quentin, don't get depressed, don't get worried, man. You're on your way. You're making leaps and bounds. So you're going to get acknowledged. Hopefully, you're able to get your Olympia qualifier at Dennis's show. I don't know how they're going to do that. I know before, if the champion who won was already qualified, then it would go to the second place guy. I don't know if
I
they
don't
still
think so
do that.
anymore. I know he gets his points,
Mm,
but we're getting a little bit too close at this time. So,
yeah. Interesting.
but
Interesting.
actually, on that topic, because we talked about how the beta alanine would more benefit performance wise, longer duration activities like swimming, MMA, wrestling, boxing. But at the same time, what I learned the hard way in the bodybuilding side is the amount of posing you do on stage at the regional qualifying level versus at the national level changes. And then I'm sure it's going to change again and get longer when I do a pro show. So,
Yeah.
at the regional level, you're pretty much on off the stage within a
I
couple of
think,
minutes.
isn't it like 30 seconds or something like that?
Well, there's a freeze if there's not too many people, or if the judges don't want to get out quicker, then it's a 30-second free post. But even then, during comparisons, it's just the one comparison hitting your
Right.
your quarter turns and then the mandatories. Whereas at the national level, I got the 30-second free pose, and then they brought us out by numerical numbers in like fives, and we hit a front double by turn, back double by turn, and they walked us off. They brought us out and did call outs, and
Hmm.
then you hit you did more turns, and then more comparisons on the mandatories, and then they
Yeah.
moved around, and that's just this is just a pro qualifier. So at that point, you can get tired if you're not ready for it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You see a lot of people get tired, especially even as a professional. I remember back in our time, there were certain guys that they allowed just to pose longer. I know, like myself and Sean, we were giving up the 3 minutes to pose because they knew we were going to put on great routines and stuff like that. But I think they cut it down to like 2 minutes or something like that now. But yeah, you get really winded, and it's something that you need to practice in because you're using every muscle.
Yep.
You're using every muscle, and you're not breathing properly because you're always wanting to hold in your tandem and breathe through your diaphragm and stuff like that. So I remember every time I did my posing routine, I walk off, confident and slow and everything. But as soon as I would pass the curtain, I would damn near pass out. I would damn near pass out. And they started bringing oxygen backstage for us to help us recover. But I would literally lay on the ground, just heaving, trying to catch my breath, and it would take 2 or 3 minutes to get back my composure. But yeah, it's a lot. So and that's what I mean. If it's a really challenge and you're being compared on a pro stage, and your ability to contract your muscles diminish, that's going to come into play. That's going to come into play to a person who's used to posing and putting time in. That's really when they're going to shine and outshine you.
And 10 to 15% less mean it could be two or three different places, right? So
Sure,
this is where
sure,
beta-alanine could actually definitely help on the pro stage or for bodybuilding.
sure. Yeah, definitely. I remember talking to Steve one time, and I was like, how do you judge a person when they both are just have amazing body parts? How do you do that? He goes, easy. I go, what? He goes, you start to look for what they don't have.
Mm,
You don't credit what they have, you credit what they don't have. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. So, in that thought, if the people are up there posing and a guy looks great and he just starts to diminish, that's something that you're going to have to note, even though he might be better conditioned. But if he can't no longer show that through his posing, then a
yeah.
guy is going to definitely be able to edge some points out. And that's where I think, with Samson putting in more time, with Urs coming up and just bringing a new life to posing and artistic, it's going to be very interesting to see if they are acknowledged or if that's acknowledged on stage.
All right. So otherwise, though, what are some of the sports we talked about? So we said CrossFit, HIIT type workouts if you're into that one.
Yeah, hit.
Or just getting in shape. So
Yeah.
wrestling is a little bit, that might be a little bit different because there's no rounds, but MMA definitely was 5-minute rounds because they said it was from anywhere from a minute to over a minute to 5 minutes worth of time with a 1-minute break, no more than a 1-minute break. So definitely that fits in. Boxing and kickboxing fits in. A lot of martial arts would.
Yeah.
Swimming, middle distance rowing.
Yeah.
Sprint, like middle distance sprinting, like maybe 800s and above.
Yeah.
So a lot of good sports would definitely benefit. Football. Well, that football's a little bit shorter duration.
Yeah, because it's burst and then it stops. It's almost
for
like
a long time.
like workout training. Yeah, it's just burst over and over. It's
But
not
basketball
consistent.
might benefit because you have, typically the play, there's a good minute to 2 minutes long between whistles.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, I'd say analyze the sports that you're looking to improve your performance in and see if it fits into that 2 to 5 minute time frame with less than a minute worth of recovery time. And that's where it fits in. But on that topic, I know we're going to switch over because something has been bothering me because my daughter is going through the phase of what's worth it at this point. Because she saw my hands shaking at dinner the other night again. She actually now is a boxer. She's transitioned fully to boxing from Muay Thai. Even if she were to get the highest levels, there's not life-changing money for the majority of boxers in general, especially women. And just looking at I think there's a big UFC event coming up this weekend. There's a lot of sports people get into and really put their all into it. And I think we can even put bodybuilding in there because not how many of them are going to put their bodies through hell and they're never going to win the Olympia.
Diminished returns, yeah. The return on their investment is going to be really low.
Right. Whereas even in Thailand, the number one sport there is Muay Thai. And you have kids dropping out of the 3rd grade to become professional fighters. They have professional fights, what are considered professional fights, when they're 10 years old.
Yeah.
And then they go through it and they don't have any other marketable skills once they get out of it. But even then, I hired a guy who was a Lumpini Stadium champion. And the most he ever made in a fight was $8,000. As basically, that's like their world championship, the Lumpini Stadium. The stadium championships are their World Cups. And Lumpini is the biggest stadium there. That's like Madison Square Garden to them. And as a middleweight champion, world title champion guy, the most he ever made was $8,000. And he even made less when he came here to the U.S. and fought for some of our promotions.
Wow.
3rd grade education.
Jeez. Wow.
So all he can do is coach. And he was a horrible coach, by the way. I'm not going to name names. I ended up firing him at one point because he was that bad of a coach.
Jeez. Wow. So what's their backup plan? I mean,
he got hired by another place. I think he ended up he's got some other issues he's going to need to worry about, like ICE coming after him, if I'm going to be 100% honest.
Wow.
Because I don't know what his green card status is now because I was his sponsor at the time, or my company was his sponsor at the time. And we obviously are not anymore. And that's not a cheap thing either to sponsor for H-1B visas. So I don't know what's going to happen to him. Yeah. But my biggest thing is we put a lot of pressure on kids to get into sports. Now, obviously, we're taking out NCAA sports. Like if you get a college scholarship, you're getting a college education from a place that's going to, if you did not have that, you'd be in debt tens of thousands of dollars, if not more. So that would be totally worth it in my mind. But someone who might give up their life or their health or something else to go into a sport, even if they get to the pinnacle of it, is it worth it in the end? And one guy that came to mind for me, and you didn't remember him, this was from the early days of the UFC. This is Jens Pulver. He was the first 155-pound champion for the UFC. He beat BJ Penn. He beat Cal Uno. So he beat a lot of guys that were the number ones in the world at that weight class. He is in the UFC Hall of Fame. This guy might be homeless right now, from what I understand.
Wow.
No other marketable skills. He made decent money, I think. but decent money in sports is not always a good thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I know you wrote a book, but a lot of people have written books. That doesn't translate into life-changing money either.
Yeah. Wow. That's sad. I mean, not just MMA, but a lot of professional sports, even though they did go to college, you know, um, end up having a lesser lifestyle afterwards. You hear about a lot of football players, NBA players who are making millions,
Mm-hmm.
and with just misfinancing or just something bad happening. They're living a regular life, or some are even homeless. And you know, I understand that because you know in my background of growing up, um, there was never anyone who was financially talking about things. You know, I think my grandmother, the only person I know that had an actual credit card, and it was a credit card to a store.
Mm.
No one talked about banking or anything like that. So I just didn't know. So when I instantly started making money, as I said before, I would take my money and put it into my freezer, and I never had any food in my house because I always ate out at the firehouse. But when you come from a background like that, it's really hard. And then you have agents and everybody else who are taking money and stuff like that. So, and again, you have them living a certain lifestyle because they're making millions. So they're spending money on cars, houses, jewelry, stuff like that to depreciate immediately,
Yeah.
and they lose it. Unlike you, I remember you mentioning your dad at a young age told you guys, listen, whatever money you get from a birthday or anything else, you take that and put that into savings. And
20%.
that just like blew my mind at that young age that he started teaching you guys that. But he came from a financial business background. So a lot of us who don't have that, and we start making money, it's really hard to listen to a person tell you how you're spending money. You're young, you're making great money, and you don't think it's ever going to end, when abruptly it does end because of an injury, or, for some of the guys, a lawsuit or something like that they get into, and that money stops, yet they still have the bills and lifestyle that they have to carry on. So,
I'll pull up another picture of a guy you've probably never heard of him. Sorry, I did eliminate someone. This guy is a nephew of a close personal friend of ours. Obviously, he's in the NFL. His name is Adam Podlish. He was a third-round draft pick, but came from a wealthy family. But basically, third-round draft pick as a punter, you're not going to make a whole lot. I mean,
mm,
obviously, in the grand scheme of things, he made a good amount of money. Played 7 years, I think, in the league. His last contract was for $2 million a year. The
geez.
thing is, coming out of college, he went to Maryland, got his degree in finance. He basically drove the same car he had from high school all throughout his pro career. It was
Wow.
like a 1997 Honda Prelude or something. Purchased a house in Jacksonville, which is where he was originally drafted, and then when he got a free agent contract to the Chicago Bears and then eventually to the Pittsburgh Steelers, he just rented an apartment and drove the same car all that time, even with his signing bonuses and everything else. He ended up getting retired on a shoulder injury or something along those lines. He was one of those crazy punters that also liked to tackle
Oh,
people for
okay.
some reason. Threw his shoulder out, never really healed. But basically, he retired with millions of dollars in the bank because he just put it all away. So different mindset. Now
Yeah.
working at Exos, we had the same situation where guys signing with $10 million signing bonuses basically went right out and bought six-figure Rolexes and Bentleys
Yeah. Yeah.
before they
I
even paid their
remember.
taxes.
Yeah, I remember Shaquille talking about that when he signed his big contract. He went out and bought a Rolls, came back home. His dad was like, "Where's mine?" Went out, bought him a Rolls, went out and bought, his mother one. And he said, he never understood. And same thing with myself, these three letters that have come after you, and it's called the IRS. And he was like, man, he was broke after that. because you just didn't understand it, putting that money away. A lot of times you're in the 33 percentile of the IRS. Even Will Smith, I remember hearing a story about him, a massive amount of money that he made, but didn't take care of the IRS and actually had to work out a payment program for a long time of paying them back. And this is when he was an A-list celebrity. So again,
You may not
this
better than
young
what's
man
his
that
height.
you're talking about, the punter, he came from a wealthy family, so he probably understood bank account savings and stuff like that, like yourself, where a lot of us who don't,
Mhm.
it takes, I mean, and I had people around me. I had Robin Chain around me
Yeah.
telling me, hey, do this, hey, put this away, hey, do this. And, I just looked at them like, okay, I'll do that towards the end of my career, not understanding that your career can end at any time. And obviously mine ended up abruptly at the peak of my career. I just knew I had like 5 more years left to me to do that, not start saving money and putting money away and paying my IRS, but it just happened so fast, and it was like from making a really decent amount of money to not making none at all, and not having very little to fall back on. So yeah,
Yeah. And it's like, I guess I want to get both of our opinions on, I guess not if it's worth it, but our advice would be to some people, because I know I did a sport prior to getting into bodybuilding that didn't pay like boxing would have paid me. But I made okay money, but it was never life changing money. I had to do other stuff. But at the same time, I was getting my master's degree as I was competing. Um, but a lot of the guys and gals in that sport, kickboxing at the time, weren't thinking that way either.
yeah,
There's a lot of sports like that. With a lot of people try to get into the CrossFit Games, even though the world champion in the individual open side would win $500,000. That's one person out of thousands that are competing that
yeah,
could win nothing, and they're damaging their body over time. A lot of us in our mindsets were like, we don't really care because we have to compete,
yeah,
and if the opportunity is given to us, we're going to take it because we have to
yeah,
try and see where we fit in. But at the same time, Jens Pulver is a Hall of Famer, UFC Hall of Famer. It doesn't really get more impactful than that, but in the long run, he probably has a lot of injuries. He probably has some CTE issues that he might have to deal with because he was more of a striker at the time.
mm.
Um, so I don't know what
The
I
investment,
I
the
would say.
investment of the money that they make versus the injuries and things they have to deal with afterwards. Is it a good return on their investment?
Right, because I mean, you are literally making your bed that you will have to sleep in, right?
Yeah. No, I like with my athletes, I'm very honest. Everybody's like, "Hey, I want to be Mr. Olympia," and I'll just look at them like, you'd be better off like trying off for some other sport, even like the NFL, even though you don't make the play roster, if you're in a practice squad, you're still making at least 1 million or two, where in bodybuilding, you not only have to become a professional, but you have to be an elite professional to be
Yeah,
paid any amount of money, or else you're paying a lot of money for your food, for your training, because you don't have a big enough name. So you're gonna have to pay for your training where you go in. You probably don't have a nutrition company because they're very hard to come by now, unlike they were back in the weeder days. And you have your supplements and everything else you have to pay for. So yeah, and regular supplements.
yeah.
So you're going to spend probably, I would say, at least $4,000 to $5,000, you know, um, close to a month, and doing that. I know my bill and my food bill alone was a little bit over $2,000 a month.
Well, even
But
if we just
and
took,
then
you were doing protein powders, right?
huh?
You were taking protein shakes and stuff during your day.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
If you had to pay for your protein, your whey and casein
Sure.
alone, how much would that be in a month?
I don't even know. I've always been blessed, even as an amateur, to always get free product. And
Right.
I remember when I started being a weeder athlete and kind of started seeing what the prices was of everything, I was just always dumbfounded on like how do they pay for that? Even now, it's expensive as products is, and everybody's taking. I'm like, man, how are they doing that and still being able to have a living and everything like that? So Unfortunately, no, the majority of people who are doing this on a professional level aren't making any money.
Mhm.
Even yourself, I remember you telling me you were one of the highest paid kickboxers back in your time, but it wasn't life-changing money. So being that you come from an educational background, your father teaching you that, and you understanding that, you weren't burning through your money like most other professionals, but you can be a top 10 Mr. Olympia and still work in two jobs, unlike being fourth string on an NFL team and still making $4 or $5 million a year.
Yeah.
So the return on your investment is going to diminish quite a bit. And I'm just honest. I'm like, look at how many Mr. Olympias there are
Yeah,
over
that
all
too.
these years.
How many total are there?
You know what? I'd always get it wrong. I always get it wrong. I know the sport's been going on for 60 years. I know I'm going to get beat up on this, but I think it's like maybe 15 or so. Can you Google it real quick?
Doing that right now.
Yeah, to
But I mean, just
get me out of
Ronnie
trouble.
alone takes up a decade's worth of wins.
Yeah, I mean Ronnie and Ronnie and Lee Haney. That's over 16 years right there.
20.
20. Okay, so 20 out of 60 years. So the chances of somebody becoming Mr. Olympia is very, very. What is the percentage? Math. What would it be the percentage of that?
That's out of the total competitors. Who knows? But
Yeah, and
to
there's
put this in
millions of
perspective,
competitors.
that's counting the one-time winners like Dickerson and Benute and Jackson
Yeah,
and
and
Roden
Jackson.
and Curry.
Yeah,
And even the last couple of years, that's Hottie, Derek, and Sampson. That's adding 3 more winners. So before them, there's only 17
yeah,
all those years since
yeah,
1965.
yeah, yeah. It's changed. I mean, back then, if you're an Olympia winner, you held on to it for a while. You had, Dorian in his era, I think he won 6. And then you had Ronnie who won 8.
Yeah.
And then you had Jay Cutler, I think, who won 6 or something like that.
Well,
So
that's the funny thing. So you take out Phil when he won those 6 or 7 years.
6. No,
Um,
7, 7, 7.
well, after Jay, you had Dexter, who had that kind of that was an anomalous year.
Yeah,
Then you got Sean, Brandon, Big Ramy won 2, which was the streak, and
yeah,
then Hottie, Derek, and Sampson with 1 each. So it's been last decade or so. It's been kind of a new guy every year.
yeah, 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 which is great because I know, whether it was true back in our time, we just believe, well, if you want a Mr. Olympia or not, you're not going to get one because, look, it didn't change hands. It didn't change hands that often. So that's why, again, if you're the best, I think you should win. It doesn't matter, what country you're from, what color you are,
Yeah,
whether you have crooked teeth or whether you're even liked by the public. It's a bodybuilding competition. And if you're the best, you should win. You may not like win as far as having the most amount of followers or something like that, but that's not what it's about, right? It's a competition. So I just really are, really voiceful about, man, I just want the right person to win, the person
yeah.
who's the
That
best
should be
on
every
stage.
sport, right?
Yeah, and we know it's not in every
Yeah.
sport, especially boxing, just learning more about boxing and
Oh,
got guys staying away from guys because they know they can't beat him or not give him a chance and stuff like that.
well, in the fight game, also the mantra is always don't ever let it go to be decided by the judges,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that's when it
definitely.
gets subjective. That's when things get tricky.
Yeah,
But that's another one. I mean, just I was lucky also being back at a time when the promoters ran the sport, or not the promoters and the sanctioning bodies had equal power. And unfortunately, Dana White kind of screwed that up for everybody because then he became the promoter and the sanctioning body at the same time. But even back then, I knew pro boxers, guys who were actual professionals that had Golden Glove titles behind their name, that made $0 for their first few pro fights as for doing their 4 rounders, because that was normal unless you're coming off of some kind of Olympic win or Olympic debut. Unless you had the name, you weren't getting any kind of real purse money. You're just looking to get your record bolstered a little bit more.
And
Luckily,
what deficit must you be in? You have to have a trainer, you have to have a gym, you have to have a nutrition, you have to have a seismist
a lot of
therapist.
times you'll have sponsors. I mean, I was lucky to be working out at a gym that my head coach was also a promoter, so that helped a lot. And he was able to, our entire fight team had an Adidas sponsorship in the mid '90s. So all our gear was paid for, our training was paid for, and we had a monthly stipend. So that works out for us. But that's not. I was lucky. So I also came in, with a background. So it was lucky. I mean, in this case, you're still hearing it. I remember a couple of my coaches back at the last place I owned. They did their first 3 or 4 fights in boxing for free. They travel. I mean, obviously the promoter paid for the travel and everything else, but they didn't win a purse even when they won. And Evan beat a Gold Gloves champion from King's Academy in his boxing debut, knocked him out. $0 was his pay for the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he had 2 Bellator fights. I think he made like $1,500.
Jeez. So yeah, is it really worth it? Is it really
He would
worth
say
it?
yes. I guarantee he would say yes. Maybe 20 years from now, it might change, but I think that's the one thing you got to look. What my advice would be is you need to see if you're a 20-year-old, 25-year-old, or 22-year-old, like my daughter. My advice to her was, what would your 45-year-old self say looking back in time?
And the thing about it is, pure athletes, we're just driven.
It wouldn't change anything.
We're just wired different. We'll sacrifice, we'll train, we'll put that work in, believing that we're going to be number one. And a lot of times being a pure athlete doesn't add up. If you're just a pure athlete, I remember, Neil Spruce, who ran Goes Gym Nutrition, who's like, a father image to me, helped me to understand. He's like, Flex, listen, you're a great bodybuilder, but if you don't learn how to speak and be able to be marketable, you'll be nothing after this. Because I didn't have an education, I didn't have anything. I was going to fall back and go back and be a police officer, and he really helped me to understand that. And I started getting more seminars and guest posts and stuff like that. But we go into a lot of times these sports because we're all in and we don't have a plan B or plan C, because sometimes our mentality won't even allow to think that, no, I can't think that way. I'm going to win. What do you mean? That's like a chink in their armor. So it's difficult for a pure athlete because we're just born that way. Our drive, our beliefs, our thinking is so different. And you look at all sports, probably over 50% of the time, it doesn't pay off. Look how many great football players there were in high school and college, and what's the percentage of them going into being an NFL player, and they can win all the awards in college and just not be able to transition into the NFL, career that they put everything into. So hopefully they got some type of degree or something that they can fall back on, but 9 times out of 10, it's no.
Yeah, I know that. I mean, even just taking it back on from the great high school players, the percentages, depending on sport, anywhere from 2 to 15%, depending on sport again, make it to the NCAA level. That's divisions 1 through 3.
Yeah.
And then that, like you said, that percentage that even goes past that is even lower. So I think the biggest thing is, unless you're like a LeBron James type or one of those can't miss options, even if you don't make it in the pros, if you get drafted high enough and you're smart with your money, you're good.
Yeah.
But getting that degree, I mean, even Shaq went back and got his college degree.
Yeah.
Alonzo Mourning went back and got his college degree. So
I remember Shaq saying, to his children, you get no money unless you get a degree. You get none of my money. And all of them have degrees, which is amazing. And you look at Shaq and what he's done. He's made more money since being an NBA player than what he did. Just the businesses that he owns is just absolutely mind-boggling, and the commercials and everything he's involved in. But
commercials are the best.
Also just, I mean, he's very giving. He's incredibly giving. I got to bring it up again. If we're talking about Shaq, I remember getting a phone call from a mutual friend, and Shaq had got on the phone and said, "Hey, don't worry about it. I'll take care of your prosthetic leg and all that stuff. And I was just in tears. I had only seen him a couple of times. We only met a few times, but that's how
Mhm.
incredibly giving he is. Luckily, I was able to file for disability, and I didn't need that assistance. But yeah, that's just you don't see people like that much who are that wealthy, who do that many things, that don't care if the camera's around. A lot of them want the camera to be around and be noted. But yeah, that's great. And kudos to Shaq. I will never forget that.
So what would your advice be though in those situations? Because I mean, every big name pro in most sports was a huge deal at every level, right? So you take who's Patrick Mahomes in the NFL, who's considered the best quarterback there is right now. He was probably great in Pop Warner. He was probably great in high school. He was great in college, and obviously he's great in the pros. So there's a lot of people that were great at every level. You got a kid who's all state in some sport and is a sophomore in high school. I mean, obviously my background. My background would be, or my advice would be, complete school, get
Hmm.
the best grades you could possibly get, learn as much as you can, and give your all to your sport. I would never tell you not to do that, obviously, because I'm
Yeah,
much of an
yeah,
athlete myself.
yeah.
But look for a college or look for something that's AI resistant. So it's something that a machine can't take the job away from you in the future. And that would be my advice, because at some
Yeah,
point the sports will stop.
yeah. Mine would be similar. I just, for a person who has a dream, I just can't tell them not to dream that. Um, but I would tell them to be wise about that, and invest in something else. Put your money aside. Get an education, like you said. Get some type of business degree, something that you can fall back on, because all those great athletes you mentioned, yeah, they were able to make it, but they're in a contact sport. So just one improper hit and their career would have been over with, and they wouldn't have been able to make that type of money. Obviously, football and baseball and basketball, you have a sign-in bonus that's more money than some of us make in our entire career in a sport. So that's major. But yeah, it's hard for me, and a lot of people like will use me as an example. I chased my dream and I was able to make it, but I just got to be honest, it's a very small percentage of people out there like me that's going to be able to make it. But even still, I was just talking to my granddaughter last night, and she was like, how much she hates school and everything. And I was like, I really need you to understand that, it's an old saying and everybody says it, but sweetheart, you got to put so much more into school. You need to learn to love school. And I was like, she was telling me how she Googles me, and I was like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, I Google your videos and I watch them, and I get so pissed off when somebody's talking bad about you. I
Oh,
want to punch them in the face." And I was like, "Well, first, babe, you can never do that." She goes, "I know I can't, but I really want to." But I'm like, even that, as well as I did in bodybuilding, I wish I would have put more in school. I wish I would have got a better education. I wish I would have understood finances more. So I can't stop anyone from chasing their dream, but man, you really need to have a plan B. You can be all in a sport like you're all in and kickboxing, but you're getting a degree on the side. I just have to really invest that. They need to do that. It's almost a must now, because it doesn't mean that you're guaranteed. You can
no.
be a Heisman Trophy, ready to go on the first draft, and get out there, and just even in practice, something happens, it's a wrap. It's over with.
Well, that was my case. I mean, my last fight was a title eliminator. The winner was going to get a world title shot, and I got knocked out so bad I was medically retired afterwards.
um, yeah, yeah,
So
you
like
have
I had
to.
my degree.
Yeah, you have to. It's not like old times where most people didn't. It just was all in. But how many people were poor and didn't make it back then? So yeah, I can't tell somebody not to chase their dreams, but they better have a backup plan. They better have a solid education. They need to have a very um, intense understanding of financially, and investing in themselves, investing in their future. A lot of us live in a moment as pro athletes. It's the next competition, next year, what we're going to do, but they're not investing in, afterwards, their exit strategy, as we call it.
Yeah.
I just had started working on my exit strategy in like 1998. But here it is, 1999. It happens where, things change for me health wise. But yeah, you really need to do that at a young age.
So plan B, have a plan B, a backup plan is, I think, both of our advice.
Yeah,
Even
100%.
if you make it, it doesn't last forever.
No, even if you make it, how many, like we are just talking about, how many millionaires that just financially didn't take care of their money, and they're living a lesser life than what they would have if they had invested in themselves. So even if you're making money, like I make okay money, and if I would have done things right, no, I'd never have to work again in my life or anything like that. But you look at the people who are making like, multiple millions, 30 and 40 and $100 million. It's really mind-boggling to me that how they can just not have any money. But I get it. The more money you make, the more expensive car you're going to buy, the more expensive house you're going to buy, jewelry. And it's so competitive now. Like you said, the young man who was a professional, came from a financial background, who was a professional who drove the same freaking car. That's some pretty intense self understanding of their worth. Stan Efferding, a good friend of mine, just never invested in that. And I remember like we rent a car to go somewhere, and he'd get the cheapest car, and I'd be like, dude, we can't be seen in that. He'd like, this ain't my car. I don't care about what people think, but he had a strong bank account and a strong education.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not worried about Stan's financial health.
No, not at all. Very smart, very, very business savvy. He's one of the guys who, got into the sport, and he was well off, and he took what he did in the sport and elevated himself. And yeah, he'll never have to worry about any financial problems at all. But there you have it. Another episode of Flex for Life with my co-host Greg. I hope you guys enjoy it. Stay tuned for the next one. Oh, please like, subscribe, and follow on
Hit the alerts.
flexforward.com.